Can I welcome you to the panel discussion today on strategic planning, namely looking at the case study involving network management systems, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to look at that case study and to appreciate the difficulties within that. Before we look at some of those difficulties, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is James Kirkbride, and the two panel members who will be joining me for today's discussions. I've got Aaron Ettingen. Aaron is an entrepreneur who's now the CEO of a global business looking at developing quality education and innovation in education. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
And I've also got Stephen Jeremy. Stephen is has enjoyed a distinguished career in the Navy and is heavily involved in writing about strategy from a practical perspective, particularly at one stage with his role as Director of Strategy at the British Embassy in Kabul. Welcome, Stephen. Just to recap, network management systems, as you will have gathered, was set up by Ray Edwards 3 years ago. Ray, a clear entrepreneur, developing innovative products, one product that is particularly popular, plus network support systems and technical support. Like many entrepreneurs, he's now reached a stage of growth where he's got many challenges, including some global challenges in relation to competition. The aspect of those challenges that we are to discuss today is the aspect that follows Ray's development of the strategy. And that aspect is how he actually now seeks to coordinate the business to ensure that they understand and develop and deliver the strategy and the objectives. And what you've got is three solutions that we will consider this today. Solution one involves Ray bringing together people of the same mind as Ray, trustworthy people. Option or solution B is one whereby the various functions and departments are given clear measures in order to ensure that they deliver accordance with the strategic objectives and those measures. And solution C is a solution that involves the developing of an overarching structure that concerns itself with strategic development and strategic delivery. Okay, solution A. From my perspective, I always thought there was a danger of employing people of the same mind as part of the strategic team. Am I correct in having that as a danger, Aaron?
Well, yes. There is a value of having contributors and multiple skills on board. And going forward, yes, there has to be strong management team with a clear strategy, clear business plan, where everybody aligned to. However, we're talking about a crisis situation. We do need unity. We do need to move fast. We do need to quickly increase sales, reduce costs, make changes to the business, and you do need a single camp to start with, and then building on that foundation, business plan, strategy, and slightly different team.
So you see the trigger, and this is interesting from my perspective. You see the trigger for saying a single camp is appropriate. It's the crisis.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So is that a few you takes?
I think, well, a crisis, you do whatever's needed, don't you? And if that means that it's a single camp, then it may need. I mean, to me, the key thing in I would have taken a single camp, but actually I'd have been really interested in having my key divisional heads in the single camp, because actually if you're in a crisis, you want them all on board. Because actually if you've got the senior team going in the right direction, it seems to me you've got a better chance. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't actually bring other people in to help you. But without the senior team on board in a crisis, then I'd be a bit worried.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the crisis situation. You get the single team, you get people with the right skills, all going in the right direction. Okay, you're beyond the crisis. Is that the same approach beyond the crisis, Stephen?
I think it depends. I mean, if you weathered the storm, then it's a question of seeing where you're going next, actually. And I think if you've built relationships with your senior team that have weathered the storm, then you're probably going to be in a better situation to maintain those and run those on into the future. You may not need the additional people from outside once you've weathered the crisis, but I aim to keep the senior team on board because that's just a general good principle anyway.
Yep. So you agree with that?
Well, I think loyalty is very important,
Yes.
but equally you do need different people at different stages of growth of the company. There are great leaders in times of crisis, and there are great people at times of prosperity, different skill set. So I would definitely review my senior management team as we are out of the stormy waters.
Okay, that's interesting. So what we're saying initially is that crisis situation, he's got his strategy, he wants to implement that strategy in the organisation, and he recognises he needs good, strong leaders who are behind the strategy to implement it. Okay. Now to ensure that the strategy is effective, integrated and measured. Are we into solution B? Are we into solution C? Or is there a solution D?
Solution B and solution C aren't mutually exclusive, but actually if I can take them in the reverse order. Functional reorganisation in crisis always worries me because actually there's lots going on and the last thing you want to be doing is shuffling the decks on the Titanic. So it seems to me that actually if you can make the existing functional organisation work, then you should do so, because otherwise you're just creating extra change when you're in crisis. I think performance management, which is B, is more interesting. So I wouldn't functionally reorganise unless I had to, certainly not during the crisis. Performance management is different. You do need to work out what you're trying to achieve. The danger is people too often measure inputs as opposed to outputs. So I'd be really want to make sure that I had a very flexible system to react to the crisis, but also that I was measuring my outputs. You can measure lots of stuff in between, but if we're not achieving those objectives which are going to get me out of the crisis, then the performance measurement's not much use.
Yeah. You find that, Aaron, with performance measurement? Because I've often experienced performance measurement that then blinds people to the strategy. They see the measure, they don't see the strategy. Have you experienced that?
Well, it starts with strategy. So it starts with a strategic document, whether it's a business plan, and then it's aligning every department to that business plan. So it's what we're going to achieve, how we're going to achieve, when we're going to achieve, is what budget we're going to achieve. So just having the document and consistently working with your senior management team to execute that business plan. That's basically the task of the leader. Performance management is tricky. What we measure is what we get. So putting the right system in place, it's required, but it's easier said than done. Because when we look at mature businesses, corporate organizations, they're very, very good at that. They would have sound financial systems, years of experience. They would have years of data as well. They would know what are the KPIs, what are the budget, what does it take to get from A to B. Often entrepreneurial business, this data simply doesn't exist. More than that, in that particular business case, we're dealing with an environment which is constantly changing. So a budget to develop a particular unit, a component at a certain price, in 3 months' time, it might be just too expensive. And as Chinese are entering this particular segment and so on. So it has to be a very agile business plan and constantly reviewed.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is those measures are very difficult and they are difficult to articulate, but nevertheless it may be required. I'm interested, one of the things that interests me in Solution C, and it may just be my experiences, but when you've got a strategic planning department, this overreaching department, there's a problem that sometimes people think, well, strategic planning belongs there. It's not us. Is that a danger?
Yeah, it's absolutely a danger. It's absolutely a danger. And to me, I also think we don't always understand the difference between planning and strategy. Planning puts strategy into action, whereas strategy actually solves the how problem. How are we going to do this? The danger is that if you've got a strategic planning organisation, they do, as you say, act almost on, you have planet reality and planet strategy. And they're sort of out of the real thing, actually. But it seems to me that actually they can be useful if they're working for the key people. So to my mind, it's better if they don't make strategy, but they help the key people make strategy. And the key people, to my mind, are the leader and the key divisional heads. And if they can make strategy with the support of the strategic planning team, then it can be useful. But as an entity which makes strategy in some rarefied atmosphere, which has got nothing to do with how the business feels at the front line, then no, I agree with you.
Yeah. It's a home for content strategists.
I think it's absolutely key to engage the team, whether it's senior management team, middle management team, absolutely everybody within that company, to actually understand their bit of the strategy, and starting with breaking down the strategy into small bites, and for each member of staff actually saying, well, I'm responsible for that bite, and that's my part. And this is how I'm being rewarded by executing this earlier, more efficiently, more economically, and then it's effective leadership of getting all those bites together.
That's leadership. So solution A for short term. Exactly agree with you, Aaron and Stephen, in terms of let's make strategy measurable and owned. Is it a modified solution C?
I think it's more a solution B helping you. I mean, you only reorganise if you need to. Performance management isn't the answer to executing strategy, but it can help you. The answer to executing strategy is leadership, and it's actually leadership in all its senses. And I think we sometimes forget that. When strategy is made and executed by the leader aggressively, then there's a chance it'll work. But if you're going to do it by measurement, I think it'll be less effective. That said, I completely agree with Aaron that you've got to identify what it is that you want to measure for your performance measurement, because what you measure is what you get very often.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with Stephen, and I would add one more point. Then, very often, whether entrepreneurs or heads of states, they all have something in common. They can be great leaders, but they still need that operations person. They still need the person who will understand that vision, understand the strategy, and then translate it into action. And it's a different mindset, because entrepreneurs would come up with strategies, with visions, with getting people excited, but then they may lack the consistency of executing on a daily basis at a particular cost, at a particular time. So it's also having that complementary, very experienced, with a very proven track record. They call it chief operations person. Just very strong executive is absolutely paramount. And I think just looking at this business case study, this is where Ray got it wrong. He perhaps his vision was right. I mean, I'm just looking at the financials. Great business model, 40% profit margins, and yet he's operating from centre of London. And that's before starting with offshoring, nearshoring, driving efficiency through the business. So in terms of the vision, the strategy, the bigger picture, he got it right. It's the execution, which there's a real issue.
I think there's a really interesting learning point as well, which is that when you look at the great strategic leaders, the really great ones, they give themselves time. And they give themselves time to think. And I noticed in Ray that he's an 18-hour-a-day man. The great leaders actually give themselves time to think and stand back, as well as get hands-on actually when they need to. And that's one thing that I sense Ray probably isn't doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I think hopefully we've given you enough time and enough things to think about. It's clear that there's a short-term solution to a crisis, but in terms of implementing the embedding strategy, it's about leadership, and leadership recognising the operational side of things as well. Thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.